Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show.
Hello, Shannon Joy Show. My name is LJ Stead. I am coming to you live from Southern California. Shannon has been so gracious to be able to let myself and Tiffany and some other guests come on this week as she's with her family. And we hope we bless her show and the audience, this unbelievable audience that you have all been able to build. It's beautiful. I think you all have really explored all these different gaps in politics and truly what our community is feeling and trying to decipher what is the difference between the reality and truth within political and cultural context. And I think that's what I have dedicated a lot of myself to. I run this company called Purple Banter, and we support individuals like Shannon in order to help her spread her message and just make it easier for individuals to have access to different opinions and also to continue to decipher all of this information. Today, I have a really fun guest coming in. My political life really starts and ends through the relationship that I have with my father. Our family has always been very invested in like what's happening culturally, what's happening politically, what are we seeing in our neighborhood, and what are we hearing on a national level, and what are we hearing throughout our community. And I want you all to be able to kind of come into this conversation and just see what it is that we've been able to continue to kind of like build and explore. So Dr. Loring Stead is my father. He is a surgeon and an author. He's taken 35 years of medicine and said, all right, I'm gonna shift it up. I'm gonna start becoming an author and exploring a thing that we've always kind of like seen within his interests as our family, as he documents everything, always discovering different historical elements. He just launched an unbelievable new book called Secrets Never Told. It's Titanic Truths. We had a relative die on the Titanic, and you will be able to hear a little bit about that story, and then we'll go into the conversation. You come into the intimate conversation that we have within ourselves as we discuss what's happening politically. So thank you all within Shannon Joy's community. It's beautiful that you are here today. We see some great people in the comments, and let's just jump into it. So here's my father. What's up, Jeepo?
Hey, LJ, how's it going out West Coast today?
It's going well. It's going very well. So let's jump off with talking a little bit about your book that you just released, Titanic Truths, Secrets Never Told. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, well, Titanic Truths, Secrets Never Told, Why It Matters Now, is really a journey through the metaphors of the Titanic, which take us to the metaphors of life. And just a couple of those, and then we'll segue into where we're at with examining trust in American politics. Metaphor for the Titanic and for all of us, and for government, for world, for individuals, for families, is to realize we're all sinkable. We're all sinkable, but we're all redeemable. So that's a huge take home for humility for all of us. And this is a society. We have to understand what's going around us politically is complex, and we have to give some careful thought and consideration to all that's taken place around us. And then on the Titanic truth, not only we're all sinkable, we're all redeemable, but just like families and society, hit your problems head on. If the Titanic would have hit the iceberg head on, it would have never sank. It was actually designed to hit an iceberg head on and not sink. But the Titanic veered to the side, did a lot of damage on the starboard side, and sank. And metaphorically in life, so many times, if we would hit our problems head on, we would make it too. So I think there's a lot of truth, a lot of stories on the Titanic cruise, Secrets Never Told. So come aboard at some point if you wish.
And tell us a little bit about like our relative that passed on the Titanic and some of the nuances about. Give us a little anecdote about like what the story was and why
Yeah.
our family even has access to this story at all.
Yeah. Well, the third part of the story, which is why it matters now, is literally like the front page of the paper today. And our direct relative and kin, W.T. Stead, don't believe me, Google it, check him out. W.T. Stead was the leading, he was a reformer. He was one of the youngest editors of a newspaper ever in England. He was coming to America at the request of President Taft to give a present at a peace forum at Carnegie Hall. Why Stead? He was an editor, he was an author, he was a world-renowned thinker, peacemaker, and head of the Review of Reviews newspaper, which at the time had a circulation of 250,000 people. Can you imagine that? There'd be a lot of papers now that would love that type of circulation. Well, it was printed out of London, New York, and Melbourne, and it was a monthly journal, and Stead was covering what was taken on the Titanic. He sent back information daily to those for the reviews of what was taking place and sent back information via the Marconi, which is the telegraph, to our kin. A lot of people, when they leave the old homeland, never return or don't keep in conversations with their family. Steads aren't like that. We keep the conversations alive. So WT continued relationship with my great grandfather, Ed Stead, his son, Elva Stead, and was reporting back daily on what was happening on the ship. So through that journey, there was a lot of lessons learned. Well, Stead was the leading expert on child sex trafficking prevention. And near single-handedly, he got a law changed in England called the CLA, Criminal Law Act. Well, in London back in the day, much like today, current times, there was things that people were hearing about, but weren't really getting the true pulse on it. Stead deep dived into that, and you can Google him and you can see he was given credit by some to be one of the first investigative reporters. Well, he deep dove on this and found out West London was really taking advantage of humans and young girls and young men in East London, and there was a lot of human trafficking going on. Sound similar to any activities that are going on today if you read the
Right.
front page of the paper? Well, lo and behold, he got the Criminal Law Act changed that took age of consent from 13 to 16 and basically is the baseline for statutory rape laws to this day. One of his good friends was John Jacob Astor, rumored to be one of the richest men of the world. His friend was Benjamin Guggenheim and Isidor Strauss. They were hesitant on this development of something called the Federal Reserve. Interesting. So Stead was on there, and he was the expert on human sex trafficking prevention. Astor, Strauss, and Guggenheim were on there, hesitant about the Federal Reserve. And then another friend, the fifth friend, Major Archibald Butt was there, had been sent by Wilson. Had been sent by Taft to get information on Wilson through the Vatican on what was coming up on the upcoming election. So the story has been shared. I wasn't on there. It's shared via Marconi, much confirmed through the congressional record, because America, for about 3 months afterwards, and Britain for several months afterwards, basically tried to interview as many people who were survivors as possible. So my research is deep. I have over 1,000 references on 40 pages, and I've worked on this for 7 years. So lo and behold, those 5 started to notice some signals, then some patterns, and then decisions. And that was, why were they on the ship? And there were so many other famous people that weren't on the ship. And why was that? Where were some of the famous families? uh, that just weren't on the ship at the time. Where were some of these famous families? Uh, and as they started to put that together, they even noticed J.P. Morgan wasn't on the ship. He owned the ship. So J.P. Morgan wasn't on it. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Fricks, the Hersheys, the Warburgs. Why wasn't that the case? So he just started to lay out dots. In our book, we don't connect the dots. It's up to the reader to connect the dots. But just like in life, there's signals being sent. There's patterns we might start to observe, decisions to be made from the signals and the patterns, and then ultimately the consequences. And from that book literally came my deep dive in investigative reporting. It's fun because Stead, after he got that book out, he met with some friends and they said, Stead, you're a dead man walking. And he always was kind of lighthearted and he goes, I think I'm a dead Stead walking. He made a lot of people mad. So lo and behold,
some people asked in the chat, why didn't they jump on the lifeboat?
Why didn't he?
Some people were asking in the chat, why didn't they jump on a lifeboat? These individuals that were in first class and all this stuff.
Great question. The men and women, women and children on the lifeboats first. And then the men literally said, let's be British. They kind of knew their place was to let women and children on first, and that they would follow later, or so they thought. Stead and the others actually, early on in the early chapters of the book, realized there probably wasn't enough lifeboats. So it's a harrowing tale. It's emotionally told. We reflect and go and explain some things that you've never really been exposed to. And the metaphors in life to this day are deep. And from that,
well, that jumps really into kind of how I want to discuss this next spot is we always hear about these grand tragedies or things that are happening even in like current events. And you learn pretty quickly that if you dig deeper, you realize that what you're being told or what, authority figures or whatever publication wants you to hear right from the jump, especially when it comes to either like businesses or political organizations, they like to tell you a story that seems like really clean and clear and very specific. Like, obviously, this is how it happened. It hit the iceberg, and let's just kind of move on and understand that's what happened with like a little bit of human error, this, that, and the other. And obviously, there's a lot of points in life that things like that do happen. You can get in a car accident just because you didn't see the other person coming. But sometimes, and I think this new era of media is getting really interesting with individuals like Shannon Joy and James Lee and Danny Love and Tiffany Cianci and Ian Carroll and all these individuals that continue to go, hold up, let's talk about this like a little bit further. And culturally, we're in this like weird kind of divide of saying, why do we have to continue to discuss things like Charlie Kirk or 9/11 or maybe even like this business dealing that's happening with like an Elon Musk and different things like that. And I think that the human condition to continue to discover and desire discovery, with also the human condition of wanting resolution, are in like these constant conflicts. And culturally, we're seeing a lot of that happen in real time. One of the beautiful things that we were able to do as a father and son was to go out, and I was instructed by Tiffany Cianci to come in and support all the unbelievable creators that came out to Thomas Massie. And that was being able to go in the car with you and experience that together really showed me the difference in the type of dynamic that we have within our relationship to try to discover what is going on with this generational gap, and more importantly, the generational gap of not just lived experience, but also the way that we're getting our information, right? And so,
absolutely. Well, I got to intercept that you had this whole Stead Talk journey kind of started in COVID, and you introduced this boomer to something called Zoom. I never knew what Zoom was about. So here we find ourselves now forward talking about Zoom, where you gave me about a 10-hour warning and said, Dad, do you want to go to Kentucky? 37 hours later, we took off on Route 66, going from west to east, considering a new journey of trying to discover why. And I asked you, I go, what do you think we're getting into? And you said, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so when me and both of you, when we travel, we always are interfacing with our different friends, understanding different opinions. And the Thomas Massie race really got interesting because it was the individuals that were hyper-focused on what was happening in politics, having it be a primary. A lot of people don't care about primaries. But this really got pushed to the surface. And you were able to, I guess we were able to kind of explore the channels that people were getting their information from just by asking simple questions. What do you think about Thomas Massie? And in our car ride, the different phone calls that we were having, it was all over the place, right? Like you would hear people say, well, this guy's anti-Semitic, he's disgusting, or this guy just doesn't care about the Republican Party. And then you hear individuals going, this guy's unbelievable. He's standing in the midst of something where no one else is willing to stand. And he's doing it because of his values and his virtues and something that he truly not only just believes in, but lives every single day. And it was
literally experiencing a generational divide, an iceberg, so to speak, a political iceberg, generational media divide iceberg. Because as I was talking to my friends, most of my friends are boomers. They aren't Zoomers, they're boomers. And they get their news probably 75, 85% of the time from like Fox. I saw news go from mainstream media to then CNN and Ted Turner and then to Fox. And that's where a lot of our generation, mine, 16 over gets it. Where your generations, the millennials and Zoomers, I think maybe you get half at least from digital, and hardly any of my people get news from digital. But so all my friends now with millennial offspring like you guys were getting exposed to different news sources, and our news sources as we drove were totally different. I was hearing that Massie was a betrayer. He was off the Trump train, even though he had agreed with Trump 90% of the time. My wife and I have been happily married for 47 years. I don't even think we agree 90% of the time. Well, lo and behold, he was saying, Trump had initially said, I want to get the Epstein stuff off, stay out of debt, and don't get into wars. And our generation was saying, your generation was saying, he violated that. Our generation was saying, but why is he doing that? So we are getting different news sources. Well, what were your news sources?
And I guess one of the things that's interesting about all of this to me is boomers are getting really beat up on their inability to be agile with new information, right? And I think individuals that are watching Fox,
in theory, we're trying.
Yeah, but also I think my generation has to be a little bit more empathetic towards like the lived experience of understanding that the different news sources, even like a Fox News that you watch all the time, still used to be a renegade and used to be this measure and this resistance that wasn't totally co-opted in theory. Maybe it was co-opted from the beginning. I guess I don't know fully like some of the context of that.
All being said, we could be wrong. We always say that.
But it really is more about the access to information to me than us ultimately saying that like the boomers are too far gone. All their belief systems are already codified. It's already done. There's no ability to absorb different types of information because this group is already kind of set in stone of saying this is the way that we have to do things. And I definitely perceive it from a different lens of our generation needs to be more supportive in helping understand where these other news sources are, because from your experience, you have lived and your parents lived through multitude of things that, like, whenever my generation's like, oh my gosh, this is the worst day in the world, how do we possibly be able to believe in a tomorrow? I have to go, well, thank God I have never had to sign up for a major war. I think that the American lifestyle right now I truly believe that we currently live in the best possible time that you could ever be alive on planet Earth. Now, you could potentially say, well, what about 30 years ago? Okay, sure. You can back it up a decade or two and try to tell me that the 80s were better than what's happening right now. But within our generation, mine and yours, lived experience, the best time that you could possibly live on Earth has existed. And so with that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a lot of tenacity about building towards the future and continuing to push and resist these different efforts that are trying to erode some of the things that are happening in our life. But we should be able to meet the moment with a little bit more grace, a little bit more optimism, and walk in and say, to those who've been given much, much is to be expected. But we don't have to show up as fearful, I think, as a lot of specifically my generation wants to continue to like absorb that. And there's a secret that everybody forgets. In every single day, the next day is uncertain. And it's literally been uncertain for every generation thereafter and every generation before us. And to be able to realize that everybody here has survived and has contributed in one way or the other, I think there can be this certain level of like excitement towards that. And I want our generation to start to rely more on your generation, to not say, what do you guys know about tomorrow? You're not even a part of it. Start going, help me understand what you were thinking about when Vietnam was happening. And how did we get to a point that we are able to survive moments like that? Not just culturally and not just as a country, but also within our own family. Like, your generation did one thing that I hope my generation starts to take on, is that they continued to move forward with their day-to-day life. They continued to get married and have children and build businesses. And not everything was so holding your own life to a point of saying, I can't start my life until this president gets in office. Or I can't start my life until there's certainty about tomorrow. Reality check, there's never been certainty about tomorrow. But I think that specifically, like our my grandfather's era was people that continued to build their life and build their happiness regardless of what was happening in the world around them. And because that happiness was built so internally and based within the family, I think that, like, you know, really extended throughout culture. And that's how the United States and our systems even survived some of the harshest realities that have been experienced on Earth.
Yeah. The 30,000 foot, you went there with a purpose to help the 21. You had a defined purpose. You had 21 podcasters come in from around the world, literally, because I think Ryan Matta came in from El Salvador, people from all over. Shout out to all those folks for just doing the greatest job ever. And with that, our generation, think of where my reflections would be. Great grandpa was in World War I. Grandpa was in World War II. My generation was in Vietnam. Your Uncle Jimmy was in Korea. Guys invaded Normandy. They had economic crisis. So many crises, and guess what? The common theme, not by me, but by the family. Faith, family, friends, football, and God bless America. Lead by example, make it happen, service above self. There will be a tomorrow. You are a survivor, just like the Titanic. Yes, 1,500 people passed, but 700 survived. Be a survivor every day. If it's going to be, it's up to me. And I think you've said it best. A lot will say, well, life happens to you. And others will say, life happens for you. But you have said, life happens with you. Embrace
Hmm.
where you're at. It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. So, with all of this, I really take on a lens of hopefulness. Is it brutal and raw and real? Yes, it's the icy waters of the Titanic every day. It's Titanic times or tough times. But within tough times, the Titanic comes Titanic truths, and Titanic truths are big truths, and that is that you're going to make it. I am
So
encouraged by your
now
generation.
pressing. Let's press on some of this stuff though. So from being, you're gonna be our Fox News dad, right?
Oh,
Because
oh,
I
here
would
we go.
say no, because I would say 70% of your information comes from that, but you
True.
also, but 30% you also consume a lot of information. So your 30% of news coverage with the Shannon Joys, the James Lees, the Ian Carrolls, even the Candace Owens, all these different individuals, and then a plethora of individuals on the left. Um,
I do like to go to the View once in a while, by the way. The View
well,
and the
that no,
Five
Fox
is
News zooms
midday.
you into the View. You know that. You're not watching the View. You're watching the View with like Jesse Waters. You're not watching the View for real. But like, um, how if within like the conservative movement, how can we think about war and understand and learn from our past and not just look at like what's happening in Iran as something that we have to like walk through again, right? Like
I was a big
why? I guess
Reagan guy,
I
and
think like
Reagan.
I think a lot of your friends and your community and a lot of individuals that you engage with, they still have like this wholehearted like expectation that Trump's doing everything right. And I'm not saying like the individuals like myself that I look at Trump and I go, Trump is who he will be. I don't have to like trust him to be what I want him to be. I know that I can only trust him to be who he is. And it changes based on the day that he's having, like a lot of people on earth. But like he struggles with this, he struggles with being like narcissistic, he struggles with like an identity complex, and he also sometimes thinks of things really creatively and is able to overcome things that other people wouldn't have been able to overcome. And he gets it right every once in a while.
I
But
hope somebody calls Donald and tells him to
why
check
do you
in and
still
listen to our
feel like people in
conversation.
your camp still have wholehearted trust in Trump at all? Like in the kind of 100%, like he's got us.
Now, correction on that. Some do. Many, I would say, would be in your camp with Massie that Trump said he was going to bring out the Epstein files. He hasn't. Trump said he was going to keep the debt down. The big beautiful bill probably added 3 to 4 trillion. We don't condone those things by any means. In fact, we condemn those. He should be getting on board with what he said. And then he said, let's stay out of war. But some in my world would say yes, but, and the yes, but would be he was handed a platter of problems that was unbelievable, and pendulums swing. The pendulum, I think most would have to consider that the pendulum for immigration and the border, and even with Iran, had swung a whole distance that now some would feel, let's it was said initially
But
the wall
But
not
didn't
done.
we?
The
This is the
wall's
problem.
not.
The problem with the Iran war, though, is we did do a lot to create this disaster. Though there was
Well,
ways
humans are
to
humans, and not all
not.
humans are good people. That's the pendulum swings. Yes, we're in these positions for a lot of, absolutely. America hasn't done everything right by any means. I would like to say this: I am as true a purple as anybody. I voted for Ross Perot. I voted for Clinton the second
Mhm.
term, and I'm a Reagan through strength type peace guy. All being said, I could be wrong. That said, going forward, there are some things that you get handed in life and you find out later, oh my, what am I going to do with that? And I would say some in the Trump world would say, whoa, look what happened on the border. Had so many immigrants coming in. And we don't agree with how it's being handled. They need to change that process. But he was handled a pendulum swing of things that were brutal. So in his a little defense, they would address that. And then on the Iran war, nobody addressed this forever. So what has he accomplished? Well, he's curtailed funding to Hamas, the Houthis, and many of the extension groups. He's depleted their ability for Air Force, a naval ability, and nukes, we think. But it all comes down to trust, because there is a crack in the trust in America that might lead to a fracture. And that's this whole generational thing. We have to keep the conversations alive. Stead Talk is conversation worth having. So I really appreciate this generational talk. But this is historical friction. Historical friction is looking at what we know today, the lens of examining the past of what we knew today. And in the past, we used to think decades past, years past, months past. Past news was yesterday. So the historical friction lens can be applied today to what we learned yesterday. But I really appreciate the conversations and the purple world for trying to keep the conversation alive.
You know, because we're in such an interesting time period now where there's such a huge lane in the middle, which there always has been. There's always been this huge 40 voting block in the middle that could do a lot of damage to the two-pillared political system. But I do think we are kind of stuck in the two-pillared political system. I don't really think we can change it. You know, Massie says it best, where it's literally built into the walls of Congress. Within, like, they have the, you know, kind of the green rooms for both of these areas. You'd almost have to, like, literally take down the building in order to readjust how the party system works, right?
And directly tying into that, statistically, look at it. Probably 25 to 30% are red, 25 to 30% are blue. That's 35 or a larger majority, even up to 40 in the middle. The middle can move mountains if it ever came to a legitimate third-party movement, possibly. I voted for Ross Perot, 1992, came to Rochester, did an unbelievable speech, and he literally said things that now we look back and go, my gosh, he was so right. One thing he said, there's going to be a huge sucking sound, and that's going to be jobs leaving America. He was right. Well, lo and behold, we woke up in the morning, 19% of the population voted for him. And at least that many, I think, would have voted for him if he thought he actually had a chance. But third parties, like you say, tough to do.
Yeah, and I think it's just interesting because the left has a lot of, and I'm actually stopping. I actually need to kind of stop the context of even like the left and the right a lot of the times, because I have to look at an individual who's like on the left, and I see him more as a person that either is an individual that is there just to criticize people on the right, just to criticize institutions, or this, that, and the other. Everybody has an important, vital tool in kind of allowing our democracy and our kind of civilization to be able to build upon itself. I actually think you need a right hand and a left hand to be able to get up an ice wall. You can't just do it with one hand. We need this pushback. We need a system that works like this and resists each other or asks additional questions, makes individuals stand up to the things that they said they were going to do. And we struggle with doing that.
Swing, but when the pendulum swings so far, it's tough to right the pendulum. The pendulum is going to swing. But when somebody's in a pendulum situation, give consideration. How did we get this? Is there anything we did on our side to get that pendulum to swing so far the other way? And that goes back and forth directly to being this or that. Some would judge me as this conservative right winger, yet I have politic nationally for healthcare reform, for reduction of some debt, and I've been at the state level for housing. So then I'm left, but yet I'm fiscally responsible. So then I'm right. So everybody looks at you differently, and the reality is, don't worry about what others think. people think be yourself. And welcome to the middle if you like. It's messy in the middle, but that's what this conversation, I think, is all about.
And that's what I always, I love um, a lot of the sentiments that come from the left, being like people forward in a sense. But what I think is really missed within that context is with a lot of this like DSA movement, I feel like we're getting more indebted to the institutions that everyone is trying to resist. So everyone goes, we have no control of our life. We want more freedom. We want more security. And they're pitching it as America has been horrible and always has been horrible, but let's indebt ourselves more to these institutions that we are also telling you are horrible. So I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like that's why the civil liberties that we have and individual freedoms that we always need to be able to protect allow us to be able to create the life that we always desire. Now, the right to me struggles so much with empathy and a lot of the cultural conversations that individuals on the left don't even know where their inroad is to be able to come to the other side or to position themselves to say, okay, I can understand why this community over here is battling in this way because it distrusts the same institutions that you distrust. It just has a different strategy for us to be able to continue to control our own individual freedom and our community's life. Like the reason I'm passionate about these things, I'm a conservative guy that grew up in Minnesota, and I am now married with two beautiful children, and I'm a Christian guy, right? So now I'm married to a unbelievable woman that is from Baghdad, and she's Muslim, and so we have the best life ever. We have so much in common with our desires of how to be able to raise a family and what matters to our community.
And you do that through conversation.
100%. And the desires that we have and the relationship that we have with God is so intact. And so I've come through this lived experience of my own self and the experience with my wife to go, what an incredible lie that the world tried to tell me, that some kid who grew up in Minnesota in a Christian family and in more of a conservative family could ever fall in love and have a beautiful life with a lady from Baghdad who's Muslim and progressive. And they would always tell you, you all will not get along. You will hate each other. You don't have the same values. You don't care about the same things. What could you even talk about? If you started to talk, you would find that you would hate each other. And it couldn't be more disconnected from the reality of the life that we're building together with our family. So through that lens and that experience, I go, that breaks down so many of these large institutional thoughts that there's another side that you will never be able to trust and never be able to build community with. It's all BS. And then when you start at the top, even in like foundational like religious institutions, and then walk it back, you realize that there's a lot of those little lies that are sewn into our culture, not just from these nefarious organizations or people that don't want the best for you, but it's just even lies that we tell ourselves that we slowly kind of embed in our own reality. And we have to like kind of work through that and be able to see things for ourselves and continue to ask questions.
Well, I think a great point for you and I is we don't agree on a lot of points. And that's the point. We don't agree on a lot of points, and that's the point. That being said, we agree on so much. And one thing we agree with her on is America's a great place. I lived in a building in Rochester, Minnesota called the Berkman with over 40 spots from around the world. They loved America. Yet I was in 200 yards of spots who were people born in America. They hated America. It makes no sense. And the biggest foundational principle for all walk your talk. If you're going to say this, let me see what you're doing about it. Like myself, I went to state capitol, national capitol. I walked my talk. I did the real thing. Where so many just say this or that, but those who don't like America, that is baffling to me. Your wife, her family, they love America. You're in a community that could not be more diverse, and the common theme is not religion. It's not culture. It's not language. It's God bless America without a doubt. That's a
Hmm.
commonality we can all stick to. Don't judge me. I won't judge you. You do your thing. I'll do me. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, but at least have a foundation. America's done some things wrong. Absolutely. Every spot has. We're watching
Hmm.
the soccer now, and there's what over nearing 200 countries. You take any of those countries, and many of my have friends with America is a great place. And all those countries coming
Yeah.
here, they were going, "Oh, America is going to be terrible." Our friends from Norway, all over Europe, all over Central America, even my friends in the Middle East are saying, "Golly, what I heard about your country was going to be terrible. It was terrible." It's a great spot. Do we need to improve some things? Yes. But as the cracks have been seen, the fractures start, continue the conversations, and it's not where we're at, it's where we're going. So I so appreciate you and your wife, and you guys are walking the talk. You are actually doing what counts, and it's about conversations.
Hmm. Yeah, and I do think the conservative movement has to do a better job of inviting people into what it means to be American, and what this culture is, and not from a standpoint of being like, if you're not with us, you're against us, but helping people realize some of the beauty in it. That it's not all just about being like brute force, charging forward, and being, you know, all about just individual identity and things like that. There actually is some beautiful culture within the fabric of our society that is foundationally built on the ability for anybody to come here and build the life that they care about, and build the communities and the businesses that they desire, right? And so this there is, once you get deeper into understanding our culture, you have a little bit more empathy and respect for like the red-blooded American that's like, guns and freedom. But there is so much more to what this culture actually is, and the institutions that we've built and the innovations that have been created, and also like the safety and the comfortability and the cleanliness that our culture has really built. And also continuing to push back on this idea that we continue to need more individuals from all places of the world to help us build a part of the future. And that's what America always has been. It started with a group of individuals that were pushed off and said, we can't have you here. You want too many individual freedoms. You want too many religious freedoms. You want to be able to live your own life. They're like, well, then you have to go find it somewhere else. And they're like, we will. And so I don't ever want us to get to a point where like immigrants feel like America doesn't want us. America has to continue to posture themselves to say, of course we want immigrants. Of course we want you to come here and build the life that you desire. Now, I think it's important, and any person usually within a normal conversation says, it's okay that there's some rules of how you do that too. Because with anything, if you're going to step into some family's home, you want to say, okay, if you're gonna come to our home for a while, let me understand like the playbook of how it works like in your house. And it's okay to be able to have those types of rules and how you immigrate here and what those expectations are. That's all beautiful, but I don't think the Conservative Party is doing a very good job of promoting it in a way it still has those rules intact, but it's also offering a solution of how to be able to bridge the gap of those rules, right? So,
I'll appreciate and recognize what you're saying, but I would give a little pushback. my group is unbelievable. I can't tell you of anybody that has a bigger network in Minnesota, Dallas, and here, not just with family and friends and community. I personally don't know anybody who's anti-immigrant. Zero. They just want the immigration process improved. They aren't against immigrants. We're all immigrants. Your family, for God's sake, when you reflected on that, you're a Belleville. They were in France and they said, you're welcome to stay here, but you're a Protestant. If you stay here, we'll kill you. Well, they decided to leave. They went to New York. We're a world of immigrants. I'll be Fox Dad. I don't know any people that are anti-immigrants. They want people here who are immigrants that go through the process of immigration, just like you have a very diverse neighborhood. Everybody in that area is so go through the process like we did. And then when you get here, love what you came to. Don't spit in the face of those who came here. Love what you came to. So I'll push back.
And that's where I get beat up. Like that's where I find myself getting beat up in conversations when I'm holding water for individuals on the right. Because I do understand what you're talking about. I understand the intention of most and majority of these individuals' hearts who are just like, I pull every lever to the right. But I do think that that group and that those individuals are doing a poor job of helping people understand the why behind those intentions. The specific thing that you just said, like you articulated that really well, but I find that culturally the conservative movement is really struggling with how to be able to approach that conversation. You know, they just see like a Mamdani and they go, this guy's crazy, he's horrible, this guy's gonna ruin our country, this, that, and the other. And they're just like, look at this guy, like we can't have this type of dude, but they don't articulate the why of the messaging of not the individual of that he's even a bad guy, but the strategy that he's applying isn't practical to be able to allow ourselves to live more free tomorrow, right? Like the rent freeze in Manhattan right now. Yeah, I get why everybody would want a rent freeze. Rents are incredibly too high. But then again, what'll end up happening is the real estate market will get weirder. Either people will like pull out or they'll just build newer buildings and start to outprice us in different ways. And what you think that you're getting today might not work for the reality of tomorrow. And that's why a lot of like those initiatives that I see within like the DSA movement, on the surface, I totally understand all the sentiment, but the practical measures that are locking us into an institution that we all don't have a lot of trust for and all think have kind of slid us into environments that don't let us live as comfortably as we desire our tomorrow to look like. The left and the right both have an incredible amount of distrust for the government, but I do see the right trying to, well, before Trump, dismantle more of those expectations. You know, he really did lie.
I think there's room for improvement to get messages out there better, without a doubt. Directly related to DSA, everything old is new again. I'm not for it, I'm not against it. The signals in the past, the patterns of the past, the decisions of the past, and the consequences have shown it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It looks on the surface where everybody participates. What happens? A very few at the top run the show. I would love it at work. I would be DSA all over if it actually worked. I would love to see how that works. There's components, Medicare, Medicaid, some things that need to work. But this, I think I'm all for Mamdani as an experiment. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. And are those who are doing that, he and the mayor of out in Seattle, are they walking their talk? What's the story behind their story? I don't know. Do a little deep dive. What's the story behind their story? Are they walking their
Mhm.
talk?
Yeah. Well, that's what's so disheartening for me about Trump at this current period of time is I really did see him as a potential lightning rod that could erode a lot of these institutions that hold us, indebted to them. And he had always been a part of these institutions, but he gave us this promise of saying, "I'm going to walk down from this institution, and I'm going to name names, and I'm going to tell you what they've been saying in these back rooms." And once he gets back elected, especially when it came to um, his second time around here, he seemed to kind of like slip back into and even to a higher level of indebting us to either other foreign entities or institutions that will continue to erode our food system, continue to erode our access to energy, and continue to indebт us to the things that he claimed he was here to dismantle. Now, again, all being said, I could be wrong, like you always say, but at this current date, for me as someone that voted for him, I feel like of my top 5 things I cared about, he immediately goes, okay, national debt, don't care about that. Foreign wars, sorry, lied to you about that. Epstein list, well, whatever. Um,
And I
all of those,
concur with you fully, LJ. Those three big violations, and Massey's pushing back on that. Massey movement, the politically homeless, is potentially a moment that is going to push forward because a lot of people on the left and right are together on those trinity of things. And yet, Donald Trump, I hope you're listening in. You can right these wrongs, expose who's on the Epstein files. I think you said, well, it's going to affect my friends. We don't care. We don't care at all about your friends. I wish they went into Congress and were as aggressive in Congress as pulling people out of those chairs as they do sometimes at ICE and pulling people out of their cars. Come on, Donald.
you're
He could right
100% right. If
he
he's
could
going to
also right
do
the wrongs on the war. He could right the wrongs on the debt. Those three trinities, fix it.
the biggest mistake he made is I never was going to agree with the way that he handled immigration. I knew that from
No
the
way.
jump. I
Totally agree.
always knew he was going to be bull in the china shop. I knew I love the idea of obviously like building a wall and having a firm border. That's positive things. But I do believe in a very clear path to citizenship. And I do think there has to be an expedited way that like we should have like this thing that's called like the portal of freedom on our southern border that should be one of the most beautiful, exciting, and America promoting spaces to be able to say, if you want citizenship here, if you come to this unbelievable location, it should look like 5 stadiums that we have in every single major city across the country. Glass and beautiful and all the things that you would hear that America could potentially represent and that has represented in the past.
However, there's a way to do
And
it.
you go, as long as you come to these beautiful doors and this beautiful space and be able to get processed quickly, you're in. But if the fact that the way that he did the whole bull in the china shop with immigration, if he kept that same energy with the Epstein list, everybody would go, okay, I can't agree with everything that you do, but we understand that you call a spade, and if you're on the Epstein list or if you're an illegal immigrant, this is the way that Trump handles things. He would have so
Can you
much
imagine
more
if he
empathy.
did that in Congress? How many people on the
It
left
would
and
be
right
the
would
most
love him?
beautiful thing in the
Do it.
world.
Do
So
it.
be tearing these Congress people out of their children's hands and say, sorry, dude, it's over for you. Your life from today is going to be different than every life experience that you had previously. And
Because of
we go,
choices
okay,
you made, things you did. This is called consequences. That's the biggest take home, I think, of this whole program. Trust has been cracked, trust has been fractured, and ultimately to regain trust, decisions have to be made, pendulum swings. Give us some consequences, Donald J. Give us some consequences. You can listen. Somebody send them this thing. Let's have consequences.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of my rant today. We do appreciate this beautiful audience that Shannon Joy has built. Tiffany Cianci will be on with James Lee tomorrow. So that's going to be an absolutely unbelievable show. I feel so blessed to be able to be a part of these group of creators that are doing such good job as I stay optimistic and desire a better freedom and a better life for everybody. I do think it's so important that we support these creators that dissect all the different things that are happening within policy and all the different words that are happening within the walls of Congress to keep these individuals accountable. And Shannon is absolutely one of those individuals. Tiffany and James are 100% those people as well. So
I do got to give a shout out to those three, but also particularly Tiffany. When I met her, I said, who is this woman? She's bigger than a wave. She is a tsunami. So my nickname is Tiffnami. She is the source of energy. She is a foundational. She's tough. Good job, Tiffany.
Mhm.
Godspeed.
She's a force. Well, you can find my father's book at Amazon.com. Type in Secrets Never Told. You will find it there. You can also find more information about everything that he's doing on TitanicTruths.com. And yeah, look it up.
Soon to be followed is the Massie movement. Politically Homeless is coming, and stuff on Stead Talk. Conversations worth having.
Yep. And on my YouTube channel, Purple Banter, we are launching several new programs, one of which will be a conversation that we're having that you kind of got to experience here today. This is what we do
friction,
within
generational friction, but ultimately conversations worth having.
Yep. So if you're not there for the optimism, we're not a very good show to follow. But we will continue to be rooted in faith, family, football. God bless the USA, and just always hoping for a better tomorrow. But we appreciate you all, and God bless.
Coming to you.
What did you say, Dad? I'll give you your sign out. I tried to close the program too quick.
Coming to you from the middle of nowhere, the center of everything, and that center is your own heart.
Lovely. See ya.
Godspeed.